Thrivers, today I want to talk about two things that you have to let go of if you want to recover from narcissistic abuse and complex PTSD. Okay, I'm diving in today. So let's talk about the first thing. The first thing you have to let go of in order to really recover is the need to control other people. Now, some of you might be like, are you kidding me, Michele? Like, how could you possibly say that? Just bear with me for a second. I know this is a hard truth pill to swallow because it was a hard truth pill for me to swallow as well. So think about it for a second. If you were raised by narcissistic parents or you were in a long-term relationship with somebody that's high on the spectrum, I say this all the time, that narcissists regulate themselves through you. Okay, so if the narcissist is mad, they will provoke an emotion in you where you are mad and then they feel better. If they're feeling shame, they will provoke you to feel shame and then they feel better. In essence, the core of narcissistic abuse is them teaching you how to be so that they can feel better. In other words, they are teaching you that it is your job to control them. Let that sink in for a second. Isn't it true that before you were going to do anything after long-term narcissistic abuse, you're about to do something and the first thought in your mind is, how will he or she react? Will they be mad? The very first thing is how the other person feels about what you do. And then if you were still stuck in the web of narcissistic abuse, isn't it true that depending on how they felt, you stopped doing what you wanted to do so that they wouldn't get angry? In other words, there was this belief that you had to control them. Now, it's not that that's a conscious belief. It's not that you're thinking, oh, I have to control people. You're really just trying to avoid anger. But they are teaching you that it is your job to alter yourself so that you can control the outcome of them. And that's wrong, because each and every person has to be responsible for their own actions. So the first thing you have to do is start realizing that. And this shows up in parents that have children, right? Maybe they're divorced, maybe they're separated, and now they're raising their children and they have this belief that the narcissist taught them, right? That they're responsible for how other people are. In other words, they have to control how other people feel. And it becomes hard to parent because the child gets upset and that belief kicks on. And sometimes the parent will delete their boundaries, delete whatever they said that they thought was best, thinking that because the child is upset, they're doing something wrong. And that's not the case. That's the narcissistic programming that was put into you, where you thought that if somebody was upset or somebody was disappointed with you or somebody was angry with you, that you were doing something wrong and that you needed to change so that they were happy. Okay, notice it shows up in friendships, in relationships, where let's say you want to do something or you set a boundary or you give your perspective and the other person gets mad. If you change your authentic self, if you stifle your feelings, your real feelings, if you ignore your real wants and needs so the other person is happy, you're trying to control the outcome. You're trying to control them, not with a bad motive, but it's a programming that's in you from narcissistic abuse, and it has to change. If it doesn't change, you will attract the same kinds of people. Because healthy people want you to have your own perspective. They want you to be able to say no, even if they're disappointed, because disappointment is a normal part of life. Your job isn't to erase yourself because someone else is getting disappointed. And getting upset, that's a normal part of life as well. If somebody gets upset because you're being your authentic self, well, your job is not to stifle your authentic self for them. That's controlling them by stifling you. No, it's about allowing them to be them. Maybe that's who they are. They get mad every time they don't get their way. That's them. Okay, so I'm kind of giving different examples, hoping that this hits home. Because when I learned this, the first thought, I'm not going to lie, the first thought that I had at the thought that I was trying to control other people, I was offended. I was like, how dare you? What are you talking about? I don't want to control anybody. But when I started to see that, yes, I was deleting myself, I was toning down my shine, I was hiding my passions. No, that's wrong. So if that stung a little bit, it's not about judging yourself and it's not about feeling bad. Because the reality is that it wasn't your fault. When you're in these kinds of dynamics, it's confusing. And when you don't understand it, you're not making these decisions consciously. It's a lot about subconscious programming, and that's for a whole nother video. But anyway, this is one thing you can let go of. The next thing is guilt. Okay, I read a comment yesterday on the video that I put up yesterday that broke my heart, where this person was saying that he felt guilty for needing to breathe and for needing sustenance. And isn't that the case with narcissistic abuse? You have to play small, tone yourself down, sacrifice all of your needs because the other person gets mad. And when they get mad in childhood, they made you feel as if you were bad. There's that belief, I'm bad. Okay. So, and that belief gets paired with any time you want to do something for you or anytime you want to be true to yourself. It's almost like guilt gets kicked on because that was the programming of narcissistic parents. They made you feel guilty if you wanted something. They made you feel guilty if you were a separate individual, if you had a different perspective, if you were talented, if you had qualities that they didn't have, if you had likes and passions and anything. It could be for anything. They made you feel bad for just being who you are, for just being a human being. And in childhood, a child doesn't have the emotional maturity to say, there's something wrong, not with me, but with mom or dad. Now, they might say that, and you might look back and be like, oh, I knew something was wrong. Yes, you did know, but you didn't have the emotional maturity to be able to put the pieces in place in a way that was healthy for you. So a child will often know there's something wrong with their parent, but they'll make it about them because it is less scary for a child to say there's something wrong with me than to say there's something wrong with the person that's responsible for keeping me alive. And so they form these beliefs that I am bad. It's bad to take care of myself. And the narcissist just strengthens those beliefs, right? They really hardwire that into your psyche. Then as an adult, you wind up putting everyone else first in relationships. You're the friend that is always there for everyone else, but you wonder why no one's ever there for you. You're the romantic partner that does everything for the other person, and yet they never seem to appreciate you. You feel like a doormat because anytime you want to do for you, and I often hear this with my clients, they'll say, Michele, I want to, but when I try to do for myself, people get mad. And I always say, and? So what you're telling me is, unless other people are always happy with what you do, that you don't allow yourself to be yourself. And they start thinking and they're like, oh my God, what am I doing? And a lot of that is, and the reason for that is because those thoughts are unconscious. They're from childhood. And until we bring them into our conscious awareness, they're running the show. My point is, if you don't get rid of guilt, you will not ever really feel free of narcissistic relationships because you will still attract people like that, right? Because you're always sacrificing yourself. Basically, you're saying, I don't matter, you matter. And what does that attract? People that say, you don't matter, I matter. And it's like those relationships just continue to be a part of your life. So you have to get rid of the guilt and realize that you have the right, the human right, to be your authentic self without guilt. I had somebody in the Thriver School of Transformation say that she learned how to be unapologetically herself. In other words, you don't need permission from others. You don't need to make sure everyone is 100% happy for you to be able to be yourself. And you don't have to feel guilty for being yourself. However, I wish I could tell you that you learn this and the aha moment goes off, the light bulb goes off, and tomorrow the guilt is gone. It doesn't work that way. On a conscious level, we can learn something in a video like this and we get it. Makes 100% sense to us. But that doesn't mean the changes in order to keep that logic alive happen overnight. The conscious mind learns automatically. The subconscious mind learns through habit, through repetition. And so the process of letting go of guilt isn't that you toss it in the garbage today and it's over and you're guilt-free. No, it's about weakening the beliefs, thoughts, and actions that keep the guilt alive. It's a gradual weakening of that, and a strengthening of the new belief that I'm allowed to be myself. I'm allowed to be unapologetically me. And that takes time. And it's about learning how to handle the guilt when it comes up in your body. So it does take a little bit of time, but it does happen. It does work. You do not have to suffer with guilt forever. If you can do that inner work on your own, awesome. If you're struggling and you feel like you're learning this, but you just can't seem to make the strides that you want, make sure you check out the Thriver School of Transformation. I'll leave the link here because that's what we do. We put the focus on ourselves and we do the inner work to work through these things on a subconscious level so that we experience lasting change. It's an international community of people of all ages from all over the world doing this very thing, doing the inner work together. So if you feel like you can benefit from that, make sure you check us out.